Hey guys, I'm Bhagat Singh from secure.com, and today we're out here in a different park. This is my late childhood park. When I first came to Canada, this is the park I would visit when I went home from school. So today we're going to talk about how to do Naam Simran correctly. As I talked about in the first video, that just repeating a name again and again isn't going to do anything for you. Just repeating a name again and again might not do anything for you. Let's put it that way. Because clearly we have examples where random people, just by repeating a certain name, got results. But it may not do anything for you because there's something that needs to trigger. It's not that just repeating the name they got the result. It's not that. It's not that they just went Waheguru, Waheguru and then immediately became enlightened. There's something else that triggered during that led to their enlightenment or awakening. Something else had to happen in order for their mind to recognize its source. Something else had to happen there. It wasn't just the repeating of the name. So what is that? What has to happen? What has to happen for your mind to wake up? And what is it waking up to? And how do you do that during Naam Simran? How do you activate that process while you are essentially just repeating a name? Is it even possible to do that? Right? Was it just a coincidence that these guys who we know, who just repeated the name, these random people, in the stories they are actually, they have poor moral behavior. They're not the best people, and by repeating the Lord's name or whatever God they believed in, they were able to awaken. Was it just a coincidence that just by was it a coincidence that as they were saying the name, that something else happened, which was not connected to them really saying anything? Was it just a coincidence? How do you meditate correctly? That was the question that was asked. But I'm going to address Naam Simran specifically here, because I think most of you guys, that's what you're doing. If you're not, let me know in the comments. If you're doing a different type of meditation, let me know in the comments, and I can talk about that one as well. So, does Naam Simran, does Jap or Jap, does it cause anything? Does it cause you to awaken? And what is that process whereby you awaken? What is that process whereby you awaken? In our last video, I said that it's not, I don't know if I stated this, but I think I implied it, that it's not the meditation that you're doing. It's not that. It's the internal process that activates, that leads to the awakening. And we spoke quite a bit about what awakening means. There's more to it, certainly. There's many ways to meditate. There's about as many ways as there are people on earth. And certainly there are traditions that people follow, right? If you belong to India, you meditate in a particular way. If you belong to China or the Middle East or Africa, you're doing different types of things as part of the religious and spiritual traditions there. So I'm going to talk about a little bit of my experience with Naam Simran, because this is a type of meditation that I've done quite a bit, and this type of ritual, you can say, because I'm going to say that meditation is something that can happen in many types of rituals. So I'm going to differentiate meditation from ritual, but I'm going to use them interchangeably as well. So you have to keep that in mind, that I might refer to Naam Simran as a ritual as well as meditation. But specifically when I say meditation, I'm talking about something that is deeper and can happen during essentially any activity. And I've also spoken about that quite a bit, where I've explained that meditation can happen even during your mundane tasks, your everyday life. In fact, that's actually the end goal. If you read Gurbani or you listen to it, you will find out that in Gurbani there's a lot of talk about this continuous meditation. And what is that, and how does that take place? That's what we're going to talk about. So, Naam Simran. This is one that I've been doing since my early childhood. And in my early childhood, I knew nothing more than to just repeat the name. I did not know what else I had to do or not do. Hint, not do. I would just repeat the God's name. And I would close my eyes because that's what I was told. So I was told by my father that just, sit here, close your eyes, and meditate. And this is what we saw in TV shows that are based on Hindu mythology. We would see these characters who would sit for months and years just meditating, and they would sit in that place until they were covered in dirt, until, if they had no beard, their beards grew fully, and they were covered in dirt and termites and all kinds of bugs and all kinds of filth. Their bodies would be covered in filth, but internally they would be in a better position, let's put it that way. So my early experiences with meditation were that it was just about repeating the name, closing your eyes, sitting down, and just repeating the name, because this is what I saw on TV. Now they did kind of explain, even in these shows, some of the things you had to do, they'd say focus on the word. You would have to focus on the word. And so as I grew up, that's what I heard. So you have to focus on the word, to focus on the name. Put your attention on the name. And yes, that is what you're doing. So that is the ritual. When you're doing Naam Simran, you sit down. You may close your eyes. You may leave them open. That's up to you. And what you're trying to do is you say the name, any name of your choice, that is tied to the highest being, and you repeat this name and you focus on the name. You focus on the sound as you say the name. And what I noticed when I did that was that it would still the mind. Not always, but fairly often. It would still the mind, and I would become focused on the name, on the word that I was saying. And sometimes I would even notice that the word lost its meaning as I was saying it, so it became just sounds. Because when you say one word again and again, it starts to lose its meaning. Eventually, it's how our brain works, where you lose the meaning of the word and all you hear is sounds. It just sounds like it doesn't sound like a word you recognize, actually. It just sounds like you're just making sounds. And I'm pretty sure you guys have experienced that as well. Those of you guys who practice this type of meditation, I'm fairly sure you guys have experienced this phenomenon where that word that you're saying, it loses all meaning. I'm going to pause here and actually check whether this video is recording, because we've been speaking here for about 15 minutes. And I don't want to have that situation again where I just give half my talk and then find out that something went wrong. So the video is recording, but I'm going to check to see if the sound is good and everything. All right, we're back and we're good. So you guys who meditate, who do Naam Simran, have probably noticed this phenomenon, and there's probably others you've noticed as well. Because there's a lot of tricks that the brain plays on itself when it's going through these different states. It doesn't, just because you didn't experience it doesn't mean that you failed at the ritual or the meditation. Just because you hear that somebody has experienced one thing or another does not mean that you failed at Naam Simran. So if your friend tells you that they were hearing sounds and things like that, it does not mean that they are any more advanced than you are. Because in meditation, the advancement doesn't actually come from the things you experience. And I'll connect all the dots together. If you've seen my first video, you will know where I'm going to go with this. If you understood the first video, you will see where I'm going. But if you have not, that's okay. You don't need to watch that one. You can, however, if you want to hear me talk about some other things, but we're going to cover the meditation portion of that video here. So in meditation, it's not about what you experience. In meditation, it's about how you are. It's not about what you experience, it's about how you are. What is the correct way? What is the correct way to be you? You're asking me, what is the correct way to meditate? And I'm telling you, or I'm asking you, what is the correct way to be you? Maybe this will confuse you. So let me actually take a different line of explanation. What is it that you're trying to do when you meditate? Are you simply just trying to focus on the word, and is that just going to cause a miracle to occur? Because that's how these stories are told. There's some not so good or evil person, and they simply repeat a word again and again, and bam, miracle. They now have enlightenment, or they're awakened, or they have superpowers or something. is repeating a word going to give you superpowers? I don't think so. And is the word something that you're trying to focus on when you meditate? I would say at the beginning that yes. Or in the beginning, yes, you would try to focus on it. That's what you're trying to do. And you're trying to become intensely focused on that word. But eventually you have to shift your attention from focusing on the word to like you're taking a camera lens and you're zooming out and you're focusing on the whole perspective, all of what you see. But it's not like you're trying to focus on all of it. You're not trying to focus on all of it. You're trying to focus on just simply the fact that you are experiencing the sound of the word. So it's a little bit more subtle than, like if you imagine looking at a rock is more concrete. And if you look at water, that's more subtle. And then imagine looking out through the air, that's even more subtle than water. Like you can't even see it. So it's similar to that. Instead of focusing on the external world, you bring your focus to just a small segment of that world, which is the name that you're repeating. And from there you go and you point your attention at something that's even more subtle than that, which is simply you being aware that you are focusing on the word. Just being aware of you being aware. So it's a bit of a shift in perspective, because now you're not putting your perspective on the word or the name. Rather you're not putting your attention on the name, rather you're shifting your attention so that it includes yourself in it. To people who are not familiar with this, it might sound a bit strange, but in your awareness, not only is there the world, but there's also you in it. And oftentimes we are so gripped by the world and by our five senses that we don't recognize that we are also just like any other object in the world. And I don't mean the body. I mean who we think we are. We have taken on that role of who we think we are so deeply that we don't see that. as just another object in the world. We think that that's who we are. And this in spiritual discourse is known as a body identification. And in Sikh, it's known as Haumai. And in the previous video, we spoke about how Haumai is this reflective quality of the mind whereby it takes credit for things. In fact, Haumai is something even deeper than that. Haumai is actually you can imagine it as like layers. So the upper layers of Haumai is simply the thoughts that you're having about doing things, about, thinking that you did things. One layer below that is that your mind is reflecting on what it did. It's reflecting on it. Right, the layer above is that it takes credit. So below that, it first reflected. It was reflecting, that's why it took credit. So once we remove that credit layer, what we have is a self-reflection. And I don't mean by self-reflection, I'm not talking about the normal self-reflection. I mean something that the mind automatically does, and then it takes credit for the things that were happening. So that quality, that self-reflective quality of the mind, if you peel away that layer, what you will find is that the mind thinks that it is a very distinct entity. The mind thinks that it is a distinct entity. My hand was getting tired from holding the camera, so I switched hands. Plus, there's some truck. This is a pedestrian path, and there's a truck. Not just any random person. It's the city's truck, and it looks like they are coming our way. So we'll just keep going this way. It's going really slowly. I like to take things nice and easy. And that guy is taking it he's even nicer and easier. Anyway. So, yeah, your mind just takes credit for things. And it might sound strange, but if you pay attention to what it does, and if you pay attention to just life in general, and if you meditate, like if you do Naam Simran, you will see that these types of thoughts, where, oftentimes it's like, we have like the story of ourselves running in our mind. When we meditate, one of the things that bothers us is that we keep thinking about our story. This happened to me, that happened to me, he did that to me, she did that to me, I should have done this. It's that meme, or that popular phenomenon where people, when they shower, they come up with the greatest counter arguments that they could not come up with when they were actually in the debate or arguing with someone. So your mind simply, like, it just can't get enough of itself. it it's like it's obsessed with itself, you know, and you'll see this when you meditate. Just how much the mind is obsessed with itself and its story and all the threads that are attached to it, you know, all the emotions, all of the characters that inflicted wounds, that you know, if you were looking, like the truck's right behind me, and if you were looking from a third person perspective, it will look like the world's slowest chase, where I'm just like walking, like just strolling away from the truck, and the truck is just moving super slow. I think we might let it pass here, actually. I'm just gonna let it pass. Anyway, so the mind is just obsessed with itself. That reminded me. So Naam Simran, one of the things that it can do is that it can take your attention away from that type of self-obsession that the mind has. And by self, I mean like all of the things that are related to you. I don't just mean yourself, because you might be having a problem with somebody else where they're actually being terrible, and you might be thinking about that a lot, right? They might be behaving terribly towards you, and you're thinking about that a lot. And technically, that person is not you. So you might think, hang on, I'm not self-obsessed. I'm thinking about the other guy. So what I mean by self-obsessed is that the mind is absorbed in all the things that are related to it somehow. Especially the painful stuff. It might sound strange, but the mind is actually addicted to pain. If you... Oh, I think it might be raining. Wait, I don't know. It doesn't feel like it's raining. Anyway, so if... What was I saying? Yeah, the mind is self-obsessed. And by self, we mean all the things that are related to it. Oh yeah, addicted to pain. If you listen to Eckhart Tolle, or Tolle, however you pronounce that, he gives this a name. He calls it the pain body. And that's actually a great name. The pain body. If you ever get sad, pay attention to how your mind starts to think about other reasons to be sad about. So you'll be sad about one thing, and the next moment you'll be crying about something else, completely different, which had nothing to do with what just happened. And it'll keep doing that until eventually it runs out of energy. Or maybe not, maybe it keeps going. And this is a symptom of, or it's a behavior or a characteristic of the pain body. It's the mind's obsession with itself and its pain. In Sikh, we would just call it Haumai. So Naam Simran, the ritual in which you focus on repeating a name or a word again and again, for some brief period, it will give you some relief from this self-obsessing mind. It'll give you a bit of a relief from your pain and this pain body, which just means the self-obsessing mind. It's the same thing. Haumai. It'll give you relief from Haumai a little bit. Haumai is still there when you're doing Naam Simran, because this is something that you have to recognize. We were talking about peeling back the layers. So we said the top layer, or relatively topmost layer, relatively, is the mind taking credit for things, where whatever happens, the mind just goes like, I did that. That's a very surface layer of that's a very surface level of the self-obsession. And then if you peel that away, you realize that the reason why it's doing that is because it's self-reflecting. It's the self-reflecting quality of the mind. And if you peel back that layer, the layer below that is that the mind thinks that it is a unique entity. Separate from all other entities. That it thinks that it exists. As a separate entity. So, and this is not something that is conscious. This is the underlying, the unconscious process of the mind. You're not doing this consciously. You're not, like when I say the mind is self-obsessing, it's not like you're sitting there going, well, how can I think about myself today? You know, okay, and let's think about this. Let's think about this. You're not doing that. The mind automatically does that, unconsciously. So part of conscious living is to become aware of this and to recognize when the mind is doing this. Right? Part of conscious living is to recognize when the mind is doing this. And that's what you're trying to do in Naam Simran. So notice how we went from focusing on the name to watching Haumai in action. Watching our mind in action. Watching our self-obsession, analyzing all the strings related to the self in action. Watching the pain body in action. And those 4 sentences are the same sentence. I can see this video is going to be a long one. But hopefully you guys get lots of little gems and things that you can put into practice. Because this is a daily, a 24/7 practice of watching the Haumai in action. And like, imagine that you are a scientist and you are studying something under a microscope. You have to treat your Haumai like this. You have to keep your eye on it. Otherwise, it will constantly do things that are not in your best interest. And Kabirji talks about it, where he says that, man's state is such that the robbers are constantly plundering and stealing from his house, and he's completely unaware. He doesn't even know. And this is the state that most people live in, except for you guys, because you guys are advanced. The person who asked that first question actually was already practicing some of this stuff. And I didn't realize that he was already quite familiar with these concepts that I was talking about. So those of you who are practicing, great job. If I could make a heart with my hands right now, I would not. Because I don't do that. But that's how I feel. So that's really great. It's really great to see that you guys are practicing these things. Hopefully from this video you'll get some other tips that you can apply right away, and hopefully you'll learn to not waste your time when you meditate. So Naam Simran, you're repeating the name, focus on the word. Hopefully that quite stills your mind. What you want to do after that is you want to actually start paying attention to your Haumai. Hopefully you would do that regardless. You would do it right from the start, but maybe you forget to do that. So next time you meditate, next time you do the Naam Simran ritual, just remember to pay attention to your Haumai, and whenever you remember, just start it then. Even if it's like at the end of it, start it then. Pay attention to your Haumai, pay attention to how your mind clings to things. Start to recognize the ugliness of your mind. Start to recognize the layers of filth that's covered in. And part of that is this addiction to pain and to drama. They did that to me, they did that, I could have said this is drama, this is pain. Part of that is the pain. Part of that is the self-obsession. But part of that is also like other things. Pay attention to how you react to everyday events. What kind of thoughts you're having. I remember watching this comedy special by Bill Burr, and if you haven't seen him, I recommend that you check him out, because he is a top class comedian, like one of the best. He will like tell stories about how he would have angry thoughts even in the most, like, I don't know what the word is, but even like in situations where anger is not even justified. So he tells this one story where him and his wife or girlfriend at that time, they go to this this, I guess it was like a get together where they had like some stalls and stuff. I don't know what that's called. They went somewhere where they had stalls. And he walks up to a stall, a muffin stall, and there's a bunch of muffins laid out there. Some of you guys might have seen this one. But he goes to that muffin stall and he just gets these thoughts, these destructive thoughts in his mind that, he's thinking, what if I just start like punching these muffins, like just flattening them with my fist. He starts having these thoughts. And he imagines the stall owner's reaction to him doing that, and the way he does the accent, it's hilarious, the way he tells the story. And then he starts laughing because he's having such destructive thoughts at the most like random times. That is meditation right there, what he's doing. That is meditation. Meditation, if I were to put it completely differently to how I put it in that first video, meditation is about observing your mind and then laughing at its antics. It's about observing your mind and just seeing what kind of funny things it thinks of and just laughing. It's about not taking your mind as seriously as you take it. And this is something that I said like this in that video, where I said, be skeptical that meditation is skepticism in its highest form, because you are being skeptical about the very source of you. Some people are skeptic about one thing or another. Here, with meditation, you're being skeptical about yourself. It's just a different way of saying that look at what your mind is doing and watch the kinds of silly things that it does and just laugh. Learn to do that. Next time you sit down to repeat a word again and again, let your mind settle into this habit of observing its behavior. Rather, it's actually something else that observes the mind's behavior, but you got what I mean. Learn to recognize where you are being irresponsible. In Sikh, meditation walks hand in hand with responsible actions. So learn to see where your mind and where you are being irresponsible and take action. And as you take that action, you watch yourself and you watch what the mind does, because it will try to resist. It will come up with thoughts to try to take you off course. One of the reasons why you need to pay attention to it and why you need to meditate is so that you can actually stay on track. Because you can't stay on track if your mind is constantly gripped by things. If you are constantly gripped by things that your mind is creating. There might be other issues that you need to pay attention to, like outside of your mind. But the reason why you meditate is so that you don't get in your own way, so that your mind doesn't get in your way. If you guys have any questions on anything that I have said, if there was anything that didn't make sense, then I want to hear it. And I also want to hear about the things that made sense to you, because both of those will help me to understand what you guys are experiencing, and then I can, tailor my videos to you, basically. So share your thoughts with me, and I can tailor this content more and more towards the kinds of things that you guys are experiencing and the kinds of things that you guys are having difficulty with. And I would also like to take into consideration the kinds of things that you guys are finding easy. So sharing your thoughts, whether you agree or disagree, whether you get what I'm saying, whether you don't get what I'm saying, all of that will help me get a better picture of what you guys are going through. I just remembered, in the beginning I asked a few questions, and one of them was like, how do you meditate correctly? I believe I've answered that question. The other question was, what is awakening? What does it look like? And I would say that example of Bill Burr is a very tiny, like a drop of a glimpse of awakening. That's what it looks like, but as a daily habit. Have you guys heard that saying, practice makes perfect? And then have you heard people correcting that saying and replacing that saying with, or adding to it and improving it by saying, perfect practice makes perfect? So that kind of applies here. When you meditate, or even when you don't meditate, Watch your Haumai in action. Watch that self-obsessive mind in action. Self-obsessive mind. I just realized that the acronym of that is S.O.M. If you watch your self-obsessive mind in action, you will definitely experience S.O.M. And S.O.M is, I believe S.O.M means the moon. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. Let me know if that is correct or not. Or at least means something like tranquilizing. S.O.M Ras is like, it's like a synonym of Amrit. Like a peaceful vibe is, I would imagine what S.O.M Ras is like. I mean, I assume that's what they were talking about when they were talking about it. They were talking about this meditative state of being where you watch your Haumai in action, you watch it do all kinds of silly things, and then you laugh, and then you tell others on stage, on a global stage. So there's all kinds of ways of meditating. People will meditate in their own way. And I believe that comedy by Bill Burr, that's his meditation. Or that's at least part of it. Just as paintings is my meditation. Naam Simran is a meditation that we can do together. So we can sit down as a family, as a community, and we can say the names of the highest being. We can say the name of truth. And we can join in. And as we join in, let's remember, Simran, let's remember to watch ourselves, watch our pain, how we are, that attraction, that pull to think about painful things, that type of thing, the self-obsessing, the pain body, the Haumai in Sikh. Let's remember to watch that. And when you watch it, from time to time, as you go about your day, you bring your attention back and you remember, I have to remember to watch my mind. I have to remember to watch my Haumai in action. As you do that, you will realize many things. That's a different topic. We could do a whole video on that. But that is what awakening looks like. This reminds me of a Shabad by Sant Naam Dev Ji. If I pull out the exact Gurbani, it's going to stop recording. But he talks about how when he meditates, or his style of meditation is how a boy who's flying a kite is talking to his friends, but he has a little bit of his attention on the string. He talks about how a mother might be working around the house, but a part of her is focused and is constantly remembering her child. It just kind of runs in the background. So when you start to meditate like this, when you start to watch your silly little mind, when you watch your silly little mind, and as you do it often enough, it will become automatic. It's kind of like, here, let me give you a modern example. So Namdevji gave you some classic ones. Let me give you a modern example. It's like when you're driving. Now, people who are new to driving, when they drive, they have to pay attention to like every little thing, right? Perfect practice. They have to make sure that they're doing it correctly and consciously do it. But as they get better and better, as they practice and practice, it becomes a sort of automatic driving, right? They can talk to their family, they can look at things. You don't have to constantly think about, well, you know, now I've got to press the brake, now I've got to press the accelerator, now I've got to change gears, now I've got to look at the road signs, now I've got to pay attention to the light, now I've got to check my mirror, I've got to do mirror, signal, and blind spot, right? When you first learn to drive, these things have to be done like a ritual. See, this is why rituals are important. So when you first learn to drive, you're doing it like a ritual. You're so focused on the driving that you're not actually driving as a driver would. You're actually just focused on the ritual of it. But as you practice driving, it becomes automatic and you hardly think about it. So meditation is like that. And I think here's where I'm going to end this video. Meditation is something that then just starts running in the background. And it happens then all the time. Or very frequently. And hopefully it starts happening all the time for you guys as you practice. But it's kind of like that driving. It becomes automatic. If you guys have any questions, I would love to hear them. And any random question, could be anything. Anything that comes to your mind. Anything that you didn't understand, I would like to know. Anything you understood, as I spoke about it before. Both of those things help me understand and get the picture of what you guys are experiencing. So I want this to be an ongoing conversation. And it will also help me refine my approach and what I talk about. So, guys, put these tips into practice and remember to watch your mind, yourself, your Haumai. All right, I'll see you guys later. This is madness. This is madness. This is blasphemy. This is walkie-talkie. Have you guys come up with a good name for this yet? Or are we just gonna leave it unnamed? I'm okay with that. We can leave it unnamed, but if someone has a cool name, I would love that. Just for the fun of it. All right, I'll see you guys later.